Good morning, good morning. It's Katie Anya Carey, your Aura Alchemist and Soul Transformation Guide here with Living for the Soul. I offer sacred tools, practices, mentorship, healing, and other psychic services, all geared towards helping you live a deeply fulfilling, spiritually intimate, purpose, and abundance driven life that is designed for your soul and not your egos, not your fears, not your limiting beliefs, but for the person you are meant to be in this lifetime. And this is your daily psychic transmission. Sometimes I pull deity cards, sometimes I pull tarot cards, but right now there is a message deep in my heart for you. I would like to talk to you about insecurity. And I would like to talk to you about the way insecurity shows up when you are doing soul work. So this message is for those who are either desiring deep soul work, are seeking deep knowledge of self, are curious about it, or are in it actively. Because there is something that needs to be understood about insecurity, especially if you're somebody who is a healer or is in front of the public as a leader, coach, healer, trainer, or teacher while still doing your own transformative work. When you are experiencing transformation, and if you observe or follow other coaches who may always be speaking of transformation about the end result, which is good. That's what matters most, is the end result. We should not be labeling transformation as only bad, but I don't believe that it's beneficial to pretend or market transformation or soul work as something that is easy and light and just some casual mindset work, because it's different than that. It's different than improvement. It's if you're doing the work of the soul in terms of actually transforming, which means shifting your being. So not just shifting your mindset a little bit or shifting your vibe to attract things, but shifting who you are being, who you identify as, and what you are operating from, what you are actually sourcing your life from. That is transformation. And when you're doing that transformation work, you are going to hit pockets of extreme insecurity. And I want to tell you what a good sign that is when that happens and what's actually going on. You're deeply insecure because you are letting go of the things that you thought you were to make space for who you are becoming. And that process has pockets of difficulty that don't mean that you are unworthy. That insecurity is not a sign that you're not good enough. In fact, that insecurity might not even be a sign of anything to do with your self-worth. That's not to say that there isn't always work to do there, but it's very common to just kind of chunk and chalk up most soul work to the fact that you don't feel like you're good enough. And while that's a factor, it's a yes and. Yes, and you don't feel good enough. And your ego doesn't know who to be or how to act. Your ego is no longer identifying with that old pain story, or with being the tough girl, or with being the person who's always on time, maybe, or with being the person who's so strong and never cries, or with being the person that can handle anything and handle hard work. Wherever your transformation is taking you, where all of a sudden you're unforming, which happens before transformation, and that part is always skipped over. In order for transformation to actually land, ground, and integrate and have an everlasting effect to the point that it's actually shifting who you are and not just the way you think about some things, there has to be a period of unforming. And in that period of unforming, you have to be willing to feel weak and insecure and unsure and doubtful. And you have to be okay with the fact that you're not always going to know when you're being genuine and authentic. And you're going to have moments where your integrity comes into question. And it should, because integrity is not static. It is always changing. It always needs for you to keep your finger on the pulse, just like any other value. It is not just something that you purchase and set on a shelf and then it's always there. That is not how values work. It's not how integrity works. It's not how authenticity works. In fact, if you consider authenticity as always being that bitch or that person or this type of person, you have completely missed the boat on what authenticity really is, because you are not static. Meaning, you are not a statue. You are part of the universe, and the universe is ever changing, ever expanding, ever contracting, ever evolving, ever shifting, ever being. So honor the parts of you that feel weak and insecure, because they will show up during your deepest parts of transformation. So you will have moments where you are experiencing a space of dichotomy, where your ego is insecure, yet there's this space of knowing. It's being replaced little by little, inch by inch, like a scale going from one side to the other, being replaced by an inner knowing of what you are and your isness and your divinely designed being permeating and emanating through. That felt so good. I'm going to do it again. Understand that the ego's insecurity is a good sign. Hitting a new area of a depth, or as they keep showing me right now, a pocket. You imagine yourself kind of swimming along or floating along a river, and you'll hit these pockets of spaces where all of a sudden you will come face to face with what you don't know, and you will question everything you do know in the process, and you will feel weak and insecure. Nothing about you will feel solid. And it's in those moments where you are being invited to build your faith and build your trust in yourself and build your value, the value that you place on yourself as innate and in the things that you do not know. Can you love even the things you do not know about yourself yet? Can you love the person that you have not met yet, that you do not know yet, that you have no idea when and how she will appear? Can you love that person now? Not on the condition that you make sure that they're right or that you identify with them now, but in trusting that there is an isness inside of you that is not who you think you are. And judge the parts of you that feels insecure less, because it's a natural part of ego death. In fact, it's a necessary part of ego death. You should be unsure about who you are in transformation and when you are going through transformation. You should be unsure of yourself. And being unsure of yourself is healable. And for those of you who are healers and guides and way showers for other people, you have to be okay with that insecurity coming up even in the middle of your work. You have to be okay with holding the space for both. The insecurity as you continue to melt and deepen and transform and up-level yourself while still holding space for your clients' up-level. And holding space for their insecurities. And you have to keep a finger on the pulse of yours. Your work has to keep going because you have to understand what you're attracting in your clients and how to help them. And if you do not understand exactly where your work is, and if you don't have a healthy ongoing relationship and connection with your ego and an ongoing conversation with what parts of you are ego and what parts of you are not, and the way that your ego operates and tricks and hides and protects and defends, if you don't have a good relationship with that, then it's going to get in the way of your ability to serve your clients. It just is. And that goes if you are just a reader, okay, even if you're just a tarot reader, if you're new in your psychic abilities, if you're an energy healer, if you're both and all of the above, these things are very important. All of those things are a form of responsibility. You are holding a space of high responsibility for those who are paying you and allowing themselves to be vulnerable and receptive to that which you have to transmit to them. And so this does not mean that you needed to be some unwounded healer. I don't even really like that term. The whole wounded healer term is just, I'm not going to get into it now, but it's, the whole concept itself is unusable to me because there's two sides of it. I guess I am going to get into it. There are two sides of the wounded healer aspect. And I don't like either sides of them, which is either you're going to attract your own wounds in other people, which is true, and therefore the perspective of that is that you should either that's okay and you should accept it. That's not, which isn't necessarily true. It's not something you should necessarily accept because it's not that simple, right? Things are not that black and white. Or you need to get to a point of healing yourself completely, and there'll be some graduated level where you're some magical, unwounded person, which, by the way, most people who believe this, they've been doing this work for a year or two, or they awakened last year, or maybe they've always dabbled or been interested in crystals and such, and so they count themselves as these big experts who are, and they consider themselves whole and unwounded. And so in their eyes, they've earned some sort of badge and they've gotten past this wounded healer archetype, and now they're able to be healers. And that's problematic because you are never done healing. But that's not because you're forever wounded. It's because you're forever being made whole. You're in a perpetual state of creating wholeness, and you're in a perpetual state of healing as long as you are alive in your physical body. So as long as you are actively healing, you are actively a healer. You do not need to be actively unwounded, and you do not need to connect with your clients through your wounds. That's what I have to say about the wounded healer. So if you're feeling insecure, and I know many of you are right now, or this message would not be coming through to you, I honor you. I see you, and I'm with you at this time. I almost did not show up today because I did not want to come in here insecure, not because I wanted to be inauthentic, because, by the way, your pain does not equal authenticity. And by the way, only wanting to show up in your best self or having a certain attitude or being in a certain frequency does not equal inauthenticity. But being seen sometimes when you're in those periods and pockets of nakedness, and doubt can be difficult. But immediately this dropped in and I was invited to share, which is not always the case. I do not always wish to share where I am, but I am in a deep sea of undoing and redoing and forming and reforming and rediscovering and opening and widening, expanding and up-leveling, because it's what I do, it's what I am, it's what I attract, it's what I'm attracted to, it's what I'm committed to, it's what I'm devoted to in my lifetime. And I intend to be the best that I can be for others. So there's no stopping for me. I am always arriving and always departing the transformation station. And has ever transformed me and my life into a life of complete abundance. And it was my mentor recently who reminded me that at times we might not feel worthy because one thing falls apart, or one thing in our view and our perception, things appear to take us backwards. And it's in those times that we're being invited and reminded that these individual things, these material things that you've taken as evidence, or identified with, or taken as the signal of your up-leveling or your achievement, or proof that you have done XYZ, or proof of your success, these things by themselves are not the litmus test for abundance. Not even your security with yourself is a litmus test to the abundance that you have acquired and the abundance that is on its way to you. I wish you earth-shattering transformation that awakens the divine in you on this day. I bless you with courage to be solidly centered in your insecurity without there being anything wrong with it, and without it needing to mean anything bad or toxic, except that you just feel a little less sure today because you're willing to stand in a little bit of truth that you do not know who you are. You only think you know who you are. And as long as you're human, that is just a fact. Namaste. Aloha. And so much love. And P.S., if you would like to book a psychic reading with me and you are a first-time client, you do get 20% off your reading. Just use the first-time coupon code FIRST, all capital letters, which there'll be information for in the subscription. I would love to complete a reading for you on the next full moon on any question that your heart desires. I have lots of options. Again, you get 20% off any of those, and I would love to offer that to you today if I should be so blessed. I'll talk to you later.